All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am so excited to talk about last night's Denver Nuggets win as the Nuggets defeat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Final score 112-97. What a tremendous victory for your Denver Nuggets. They have won 3 games in a row. By the way, this is the very first time that the Minnesota Timberwolves have lost 3 games in a row this season. And I think that is a pretty notable thing. Apologies for the late starts. I wanted to get as many Nuggets fans in here live as I possibly could, so I waited for Adam and the Legs to finish over at the All City podcast. They do a fantastic job. They have a fun time, and I respect their show a lot. And I respect what they've built. And I'm just very, very excited to be here talking Nuggets with all y'all. Hopefully we have a very fun time in this particular pod. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a party. Really looking forward to talking about Nikola Jokic eviscerating, dominating, melting down, Thanos snapping Rudy Gobert and the Minnesota Timberwolves last night. What a fun thing to witness for all involved. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but wanted to bring up that this podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for your summer sports this season with MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. Get all the latest stats, news, and scores available to you when you follow your NBA teams, your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head over to their website or use the app BetOnline where the game starts. All right, let's get into this thing. Let's talk about just how insane that Nikola Jokic performance was. That's going to be what our first segment is on. Then we'll get to the rest of the game. Sometimes I forget how lucky I am to be in this position where you get to cover the team, you get to go to these games, and you get to witness these moments in history that you don't necessarily know that you're witnessing in real time. You don't necessarily know what's going on with everything involved. But last night was a moment, and I wanted to record the entire MVP ceremony in its entirety. That's on my Twitter page if you want to follow at NBA Blackburn. But this was between that and then what actually happened in the game, it was one of the greatest Nikola Jokic moments and Nuggets fan moments that I think we've ever seen in NBA history. Think about this. Joker wins his 3rd MVP. There's a big old graphic that goes on the Jumbotron that says MV3 with his 3rd MVP. He's one of nine guys to ever do it. And he was first announced as the MVP, as Michael Malone noted, when the Nuggets were down 0-2. And it looked like, oh man, are the Nuggets going to lose this series? They're going to lose another series when Jokic is in the midst of winning a 3rd MVP. And then game 3 rolls around and Jokic delivers in a big moment. Murray delivers in a big moment. The Nuggets deliver in a big moment. Game 4 happens and Jokic gets even better. It's 35, 7, and 7 in that game, if I recall. And he was just dominant in that one, going at Naz Reid, Karl-Anthony Towns, to a lesser extent, Rudy Gobert in that one. But he basically cooked everybody in front of him last Sunday, Mother's Day. And then we get last night, which is the best of the bunch, where Nikola Jokic goes for 40 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, and slacking on the rebounds a little bit, and 0 turnovers. 0. That is the first time that stat line has ever happened before in the playoffs. I don't know if it's happened in the regular season, but certainly it is the first time it has happened in the playoffs. And to save it for this moment where Denver, they absolutely see the comments here. What's up, Ava? Um, Seeing him be able to put on that performance when there's so much pressure, there like every game you get deeper and deeper into the series. Every single time, like Jokic is just downloading information. He's putting things into perspective. And he puts up that performance with that level of point production and assist production. Like, is that good? Is that good? Like, has that ever happened before? Can anybody say that they've ever done that before? Like, I'm not gonna lie. I went over to Basketball Reference or StatHead and I looked up whether even 40 points and 13 assists has ever happened before. And it has. This is like the 10th time since like assists have been tracked that has happened in NBA playoff history. But the fact that I even had to look that up, like Joker's doing this as a center, man. Like he's doing this as a playmaker, somebody who like has no business at the size that he is being as cerebral, dexteric, and skilled as he is. And Joker just found a way to make the correct decision with the basketball every single time. And honestly, like the last couple of shots that he missed towards the end of that game, he's just fading away. He's just trying to hit a nice little capper of a shot. Like if he really wanted to, he would have gone to the paint. He would have tried to shoot through whoever was guarding him. And mostly it was Towns at that point, as opposed to fading away constantly. But it was just so fascinating to see how he has consistently downloaded information from game one and game two, where he was underwhelming, to be clear. Game one, he was better. Game two, he was not. To the point where in games 3, 4, and 5, he's gotten progressively better and better and better at reading what the Timberwolves are doing, to now there's no surprising him. They haven't been able to surprise him at all. And he has such a control of what's going on right now that it's just impossible to not feel bad for Rudy Gobert, who was the brunt of all of the criticism last night and even into this morning, where all of the headlines are basically, and I'm credit to it, like the headline, or actually it'll probably be down there. The headline that you're seeing for my YouTube for SEO purposes is that Jokic is dominating Gobert. And it's true. But that's not about Gobert. It really isn't. It's just like the fact that Rudy Gobert is the 4-time defensive player of the year. That's the thing as well. But it wouldn't have mattered who was guarding him. It wouldn't have mattered what they were doing, because whether the Timberwolves were doubling, whether they were single covering, whether they were triple covering, whether they were zoning up, whatever they were going to do, the Timberwolves were going to get cooked last night because Joker was just in that zone. He was in that place where it doesn't matter what the opposing team throws at him. And it feels like he has really figured out this series. He's really figured out what the Timberwolves have done. And I kind of feel bad for Rudy because last night there was some of it that felt a little bit personal, you know? There was some of it that felt like, okay, in Minnesota, the Timberwolves were honored with 3 separate awards. They were honored with Mike Conley getting the Teammate of the Year, Naz Reid getting 6th Man of the Year. Both of those were on Friday night of last week. And then on Sunday, Rudy Gobert gets honored for Defensive Player of the Year. And the Nuggets had to watch that. They watched that and they were probably not seething a little bit, but there was some clapping going on. There's some respect going on. But there is also in the competitive minds of most of the Nuggets, and especially of Joker, that he has something to prove. He wants to prove something. He went out and sought out that matchup in several possessions because it feels like he has that matchup figured out. And then like last night, it was just on another level. The number that's been going out that SportsCenter posted like 12 minutes after the game was that Nikola Jokic, 8 of 9 with Rudy Gobert as the primary defender. He was throwing up hook shots. He was spinning him around in circles. He was putting him under the basket. He was chucking up floaters for and ones. He was pump faking and getting to doubles, like he was getting to the rim and dunking, like he's hitting fadeaways. Just a monster performance, and one that we are going to remember for a long, 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 long time. I genuinely believe that that was the greatest performance of Jokic's career. And there have been some others with gaudy stat totals, of course. He's had the 30-20-10 game in the finals. He had a 50-point game against the Suns. But the degree of difficulty on some of the shots that he was hitting last night and the amount of moves that he went to. Taylor says it here. I could watch Jokic put Gobert in the washing machine all day, man. The footwork is absolutely mesmerizing. It's so true. Like, and people don't fully they don't fully appreciate this. Jokic is having to go to all of these other footworks and all of these other moves, pivoting, reverse pivoting, pump faking, step throughs, step backs, whatever it is, quick spins. He's going to all of this because Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year, because of how good he is. Like, if this was, I mean, we're going to get into it. If the Nuggets do end up advancing in the next round, Jokic is going to go from Rudy Gobert and a strong set of defensive centers, especially post defensive centers, to either Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams on the Thunder side, or Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively and maybe PJ Washington on the Dallas side. Like, it's going to, like, Brendan Vogt used this analogy last night. It's like when you're in baseball and you're warming up in the batter circle with a donut around your bat, just a little extra weight, and then you take off the weight when you actually go up to the plate and your swing is that much faster. That is like what next round would be. So don't want to put the cart before the horse, because the Nuggets still have their toughest game, and we'll talk about that in the third segment. But what Jokic is doing right now against the defensive player of the year is disgusting. And I have to imagine that if they were to advance, like, it is going to look even more crazy in the upcoming rounds. It's going to be a lot of fun. That, I think, was the best performance of Jokic's career in the playoffs. And to even say that with all of the things that he has done is tremendous. Let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about the rest of the team who also played last night, and just everything that the Nuggets put together, including their defensive game plan against Anthony Edwards. I thought that was very interesting. We will be right back. But first, I got to mention number 38, who have done a fantastic job hosting Mile High Sports watch parties. I know that the Avs are now in a really tough spot, but the Nuggets were in a tough spot just a week ago. So anything can happen. Anything can change. If you are in town in Denver and looking for a place to go to watch these games, to enjoy the vibes, to have a great time, make sure to head down to number 38 in Rhino, where they put together, we've done pregame podcasts, we're doing giveaways, $15 pitchers, lots of great things over at number 38. Make sure to go check it all out where the game starts. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. And we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Oh, I've got a guest. Got somebody who's joining me now. Thank you. Yeah, this is not okay. This is gonna be a problem. All right. This has been a tremendous performance by the Nuggets. Turning what was 0-2 into 3-2 is just so awesome for the Nuggets. I can't imagine. Sorry, we're getting cat time right now. He seems to, as Cedrica says, seems to just want to distract. No, you are not going up there. You're going down here. The real cat, as Casey Mack says, the real cat. That is Smoke. That is my roommate's cat, and he loves to be involved with everything I do. Look, the entire Nuggets team showed up in a big way last night. It wasn't necessarily from a scoring perspective, but it was from a team perspective. Denver allowed just 97 points, and it feels like the defense has been really good for Denver for much of this time. It wasn't great against the Lakers. The Lakers found some things that they could consistently go to. But the Nuggets defense against the Timberwolves, especially in games 3, 4, and 5, has really amped up, and they've been more precise and they've figured some stuff out. One of the things that they did last night that really was the defining aspect of their game plan was double Anthony Edwards. Anytime he really tried to turn the corner, anytime he tried to get around Jokic, or like the Nuggets had an opportunity to double and get the ball out of his hands, they did. And they were able to do that for a couple of reasons. The first one is that Mike Conley did not play. Mike Conley not being out there is a big deal as a secondary release valve, as somebody who could hit threes, as somebody who can make decisions with the basketball in his hands and have a great opportunity to always just like put the ball into the right position, whether that's swinging the ball to another player, whether it's driving the lane and driving the gap. The Timberwolves don't have enough guys who could do that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was okay, but Jaden McDaniels doing it, like he kind of struggles a little bit in terms of making decisions. Had 3 turnovers last night, including a big charge in the second quarter, in a string of charges that were actually pretty big for the complexion of the game. But Denver, and Karl-Anthony Towns is a little bit bumbling. Rudy Gobert, when Denver doubles off of him and they're blitzing with Joker, Gobert as a release valve is just not good enough. He's not going to make enough good decisions with the basketball, although he played a pretty good game on the offensive end last night. I don't want to take away too much. I thought he was probably their best player last night, which is fascinating. But between him and Alexander Walker, and whenever you mix in Kyle Anderson or Naz Reid or Monte Morris, the Wolves just don't have enough guys that they trust as a real secondary option when Ant is being, when they're trying to take him away. It has definitely felt like the Wolves have gone more and more towards, okay, can Ant save us? Can Ant be the guy? Can he do everything? And he did it, or at least kept it close in game 4. I want to like he was very good in that one. Game 1, he won the game with the way that he played and the way that he was matching up against Denver on a consistent basis and scoring over KCP and Aaron Gordon and guys like that. Jamal Murray especially too. But Denver did a great job in matching up with Ant and forcing somebody else to beat him. And it was just like, that's exactly what the Nuggets wanted their game plan to be, especially without Mike Conley out there. So credit to the Nuggets coaching staff and credit to the Nuggets players for executing that plan. Back on the offensive end, Jokic, obviously, when it's 40 points and 13 assists that he generates, he's creating so many points. But there were some possessions that I want to give both Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon credit for. Jamal Murray, in a lot of those possessions, for whatever reason, they were trying to blitz Jamal a lot. They were trying to slow down Denver's 2-man game whenever they could. And that involved whoever was on ball. And then usually it was either Gobert or Towns trying to hedge pretty hard and not give Jamal the opportunity to pass to Joker. But he often got the ball to Joker anyway. And when he did, you have Joker in the middle of the floor, in the pocket, in a 4-on-3 situation where he could either shoot the floater, he could go to the rim and draw a foul, or he could kick it out to a 3-point shooter, or he could drop it off to a cutter. And that all starts with Jamal being able to get him the pass. And I don't know what the numbers were last night for Jamal actually getting secondary assists or anything like that. I'll try to check it out and see if I can find it here. But that's one of those things that he's not going to get a bunch of credit for in the meantime. And especially the numbers for Jamal, 16 assists or 16 points, 4 assists, pretty underwhelming in terms of his actual like totals. Um, let me see if I can figure this out. Secondary assists last game. Probably not as many as I thought. But look, I thought that's like when he has to take up some of that advantage, it helps Joker do the rest of it. Um, Now Jamal really started slow. He finished the game off pretty strong. I still don't think that he's fully healthy. It's very clear that he is not fully healthy. And that's just going to continue to wear on him for the rest of the playoffs if Denver does end up advancing. So if they can get through this series, hopefully the other series goes 7. Denver has a couple extra days to rest. Maybe that would be a big thing for Jamal. But the other thing is that Minnesota's their defense is just like it's incredible. The fact that Denver is doing what they're doing, scoring the way that they're scoring in the last 3 games, is more about elite shot making and Joker just being unbelievable rather than anything else. Like the T-Wolves are doing a great job defensively, and they've got the personnel to try to take away Jamal between Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Nikhil Alexander-Walker. And then, oh, by the way, if you're hard hedging with Rudy Gobert, then that's a lot of difficult stuff. Aaron Gordon's the other guy you got to credit, right? Like 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, was dynamic at times. He got some early foul trouble in this game, only played 4 minutes in the first quarter and then came back in at the beginning of the second quarter. The T-Wolves committed 3 offensive charges in succession, or it felt like it, towards the early to middle portion of the second quarter. And Gordon was at the center of all of those with just taking a couple of charges, and he did it with a couple fouls. But the Timberwolves were trying way too hard, trying to get to the rim, trying to finish through contact. And Gordon, his ability to find ways to win and to find ways to produce, it's just such a big deal that, like, I mean, he's just been dynamic, like in different ways. 18 points is a big deal. 7 of 14. Didn't hit his jumpers in this one, but he did hit a nice bank shot right at the end of the buzzer, at the end of the shot clock buzzer, towards the end of the fourth quarter. That was a big shot for sure. And then that was right before Jokic hit the step back 3 at the buzzer over Gobert to get 40. So like Cedric says here, AG like a mini yoke. It feels like it. He has stepped up in such a big way. And like I said on the last podcast, I have not done a good enough job of giving Aaron Gordon the credit that he deserves for what he has done. He deserves so much credit. And I think the regular season, he was sandbagging just a little bit, trying to save up some of the energy physically, but he has been locked in. And the shooting numbers that he's putting up on this series, but also just in the playoffs in general, are just tremendous. Let me find them real quick. Aaron Gordon in the playoffs so far, 15.6 points, 7.5 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1 steal, only 0.3 blocks, but it has felt better than that. 59.4% from the field, 39.1% from 3, 80.1 or 80.8% from the line. Like this is nearly 60-40-80 what we're seeing from Gordon in the playoffs. And the shots that he's putting together have been incredible. And the plays that he put together, like the loose ball that he ran down, like he flicked it out of Anthony Edwards' hands on the right side of the floor, chases it down, and then grabs it and in one motion dunks it over Karl-Anthony Towns. Like that is an athletic play that so few players in the NBA can make. 99th percentile athlete, 100th percentile athlete. He is about as good as you could possibly get. Just been a lot of fun to watch him. And then KCP is another guy that you got to give credit to as well. He hadn't been shooting that well for much of these playoffs, but last night, 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, 4 assists, plus 16 points. Dynamic. I think part of that, by the way, so he had to work really hard on Ant, but the Nuggets consistently sending help to him probably didn't have him work as hard on the defensive end as he had to in the previous 4 games against this team, where he would, in a lot of times, was just the sacrificial lamb. He was the guy that had to die in order for Denver to win some of those games. And they didn't early on, but KCP, he's played better. I thought the defense was pretty good tonight or last night, despite the fact that he was getting help on a consistent basis. Only had 1 steal, but it just feels like he is very involved, very impactful. And the way that he continues to do it has been a lot of fun to watch. I'm hopeful that this can be a little bit of a turnaround moment. 4 of 5 from 3. Denver as a team shot 9 of 19. Michael Porter, by the way, 2 of 10 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3. Had a couple blocks, and there were some nice plays that he made, but also some really bad ones that he made. He has not played great in these last 2 games. I think that game 4 was less about him playing badly and more about the way that the Timberwolves were guarding him versus guarding everybody else. Last night was more about him. Last night was more about Porter just not really stepping up to the plate. And I thought that he made some really bad decisions, especially in that first quarter. So who knows? Maybe he will improve. Like I assume that he will improve. He has done a great job. He played so well for Denver for the first 8 games of the playoffs, and these last 2 have not been great. I would look for a Michael Porter bounce back in game 6. But in his place, Christian Braun, of course, steps up. Christian Braun has been the guy that's closed the game for Denver for these last couple and has earned it. He's deserved it. 28 minutes last night, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, filling up the box score. He hit a nice step back 3 when the T-Wolves just completely disrespected his shot. He hit a nice and one. And then in the first half, he was running in transition so hard. Joker was like, thank you for running. I will pass it to you every time. And lo and behold, Christian Braun gets dunks in transition because he is available, because he's working hard and outworking the Timberwolves on a consistent basis. He also grabbed a bunch of rebounds in the fourth quarter that were some of those that were outside of his area, but it was an effort rebound. And so love the way that he has been playing. He's like, look, I'm the first one that's like, I think that Denver has not had enough, that they did not have enough off their bench this year. I've been very adamant about that. And I'm probably going to end up being wrong on that because Christian Braun has stepped up in a big way. Justin Holiday, through the first 4 games, stepped up in a big way. I thought he was bad in game 5. Reggie Jackson, only 7 minutes, 6 points, 3 of 3 from the field, plus 4. Did a great job. And especially end of quarter sequences, at the end of the first and third quarter. So big time there. Last night or yesterday, I was very adamant that I thought that Peyton Watson was going to get an opportunity. And if he had not allowed Karl-Anthony Towns to score in 2 seconds at the end of the first quarter, I would probably be right about that. He allowed Karl-Anthony Towns to catch the ball in the middle of the paint and shoot right over the top of him in a situation where he was brought on to guard Karl-Anthony Towns. That was not great. So hopefully Peyton Watson can bounce back a little bit. It would be nice to see him out there. I really thought that he was going to play more, and maybe he would have had he not made that mistake immediately. So we will see what happens. But credit to the bench, man. They've found ways to be impactful. Reggie Jackson, Christian Braun, Justin Holiday. Hopefully Peyton Watson can get back into the mix because you want Denver to not have to play Aaron Gordon at the backup 5. Aaron Gordon backup 5, Michael Porter backup 4. Christian Braun has slid over to the backup 4 on occasion. But they're just playing their starters and their front court specifically such heavy minutes. So you wonder if they can get away with that. Although Aaron Gordon only 34 minutes because of the foul trouble, that secretly may have helped Denver and helped Gordon later on in the game. So interesting to see how all these things have ramifications. Game 6 is going to be interesting. Let's talk about it on the other side, actually. We will be right back talking about game 6 and everything that comes with it. But first, this message from Scott DeHuff.
Hey, what's up? It's DeHuff. I love to have fun. So tune into my podcast, DeHuff Uncensored. I give unfiltered takes on Denver sports, crazy news from around the world. Plus, you never know which one of my characters is going to swing by. Well, I hope one of them's your mother. Oh, Connery, Mama is always here for you. What in the blue heck is going on here? So subscribe and get ready to laugh to DeHuff Uncensored anywhere you find podcasts. Follow me on social media at DeHuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. Pickaxe and roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Yeah, folks, I was wrong about the PWAT thing. Sorry. I'm seeing the comments here. Not necessarily great. Maybe this is not a PWAT series, but perhaps a future series might be. And that is what's good about Michael Malone, David Adelman, Ryan Saunders, everybody in between on the Nuggets bench. They do a great job of putting together a game plan that takes advantage of the opposing team's weaknesses, tries to mitigate Denver's weaknesses, and the spacing that the Nuggets have had in the last 3 games has just been such a big deal. If I go through and I look at each of the box scores that Denver has put up in this series so far, it's night and day based off of the shooting. Like, you go back to game 3, 48% from 3, 14 of 29, such a big one. Game 4, 13 of 29, 44.8% from 3. And then game 5, obviously, 9 of 19, 47.4% from 3. Denver shooting efficiently, and they're spacing the floor and doing a great job in this matchup, especially in these last 3 games, of taking advantage of the opportunities that they've had. Brown has been a big factor in that. Justin Holiday obviously been a big factor of that. Reggie Jackson even been a big factor of that. So maybe it's not as big of a deal in future series. It might be, though. Like, with the interior defense that the T-Wolves have played, like, not surprising that Denver's gone to a more perimeter-based approach. The other thing is that the Timberwolves just haven't had anybody that has really forced Denver to pay for going small. They've had guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Naz Reid, but Denver's been living with that. And Towns has just been, like, some of the possessions that he has are fine. 10 of 19 last night for 23 points, 2 of 5 from 3, but only 1 of 2 from the free throw line because the Nuggets are doing a great job of keeping him in front of them, of making him make tough shots. And he was 5 of 18 in game 4. And so I'm not surprised that they're winning those minutes, and winning the Towns minutes. He was minus 17 in his 38 minutes. The T-Wolves were plus 2 in the 10 minutes that Towns did not play. And then Naz Reid is the other one. Denver's been, like, especially when those two are on the floor together and Jokic is out there, they've had Christian Brown, KCP, and Justin Holiday specifically, those 3 rotating between Towns and Naz Reid. Those guys are small, like 6'5", 6'6", and like Holiday's like 190 pounds. He's a string bean. KCP he's built like a normal shooting guard. Christian Brown he's strong. He's been big. He's like 6'6", 6'7", but he's also like, he's got like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. So it's not like those guys are defending them with their length and their athleticism. They're defending them with positioning. And they haven't been able to take advantage of that. I wonder, like, can they take advantage of that? Maybe. Like, you would think that they would get a better whistle in game 6, that the Timberwolves, if they find a lane, if they can post up a little bit, if they could do some seals in the middle of the paint. I thought that Gobert did a great job against that. Like, especially when he had Justin Holiday on him. Like, that was a matchup that was a problem for Denver. Rudy Gobert did a pretty good job in that situation, but he was the only big, really, that did that. So interesting to see how that's going to work. Interesting to see what Denver does with this going forward. But they've been able to switch everything against the Timberwolves and not really feel the pain of that. So I'm curious to see that if Denver does move on, like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown as bigger wings, like even bigger than somebody like Ant. that would be a little bit different. Luka Doncic, a little bit different. Even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like Denver might need to play with more length and more size on the perimeter as opposed to more fundamental options. So that could be where a guy like Peyton Watson comes in. We'll see what happens then. But for now, I want to give credit to Michael Malone and to the Nuggets. As you know, if you've been listening to this podcast, if you've been watching this podcast, I was pretty down on Denver's ability to come back in this series. And I think I forgot, along with a lot of others, but I'm going to take like the blame on this one, about what it means to have the heart of a champion, the heart of a team that has gone through the trials and tribulations and gone out on the other side and become better for it and more polished and more like iron sharpens iron kind of thing. Like the Nuggets have gone through stuff like this and they've had these moments where, oh yeah, it could be bad. Like things could look pretty ugly. But the Nuggets never let that get to them. And I was going back and forth with Matt Moore on this prior to Game 5. I thought that Denver was cooked at the end of Game 2 or by the end of Game 2 because of the way that they responded to adversity, because of the way that they did not handle how they should have. Matt was very adamant that like that was just a tough moment and that they would get to it on the other side. So credit to Matt. He knows what he's talking about. Like he's been fantastic and he's been on this. I'm very curious to see if Denver can continue to push, if they kind of let go of the rope a little bit now that they've won 3 games in a row. They know that they are in control of this series. But what really would separate it is if they got it done in Game 6 and didn't let it even get to a Game 7. Because Game 7's anything can happen. They really can. Like, it just doesn't matter. Anthony Edwards could go insane. Karl-Anthony Towns could hit 5 threes. Hell, Naz Reid could hit 5 threes. And then that changes the complexion of a game. It changes the complexion of a matchup. You do not want to let it get to that point. And so if you're Denver, then I think that this next matchup is such a big one because you just never want to see another team get momentum. And Denver has experience with this. I was listening to Swipa on the latest Locked On Nuggets pod. He was talking about the 2019 experience that Denver had where they were up 3-2 in different matchups with home court, but then they went on the road. And in the first round of the playoffs, they lost to the Spurs in Game 6, despite the fact that Jokic dropped 43. And then they ultimately won Game 7, but it was a chore. And like there was so much pressure. There was so much pressure heading into that matchup, and you just never knew how Denver was going to respond. And that game was a slog, if you remember. And then the next time, in the next round, Denver's up 3-2 against the Portland Trailblazers. Juancho Hernangomez does his little spaz out celebration after hitting a 3 at the end of Game 5. And then the Nuggets lose Game 6. And then they lose Game 7 because CJ McCollum goes insane. Not Damian Lillard, who wasn't good in that game, but made some plays. But it was really CJ McCollum who carried the team home because the Nuggets didn't have anybody to guard him one-on-one. You just do not want to let it get to a Game 7. You want to take advantage of this opportunity. You want to be able to put the opposing team down immediately. Don't give them any life because the Nuggets have done such a great job of taking care of that momentum now. All the momentum is in their favor, every single little bit of it. I think that Denver gets it done just after watching these last 3 games. I think that they get it done in Game 6 because I think that they woke up after Game 2. And what I considered to be a burning of bridges kind of moment was actually Denver waking up, coming together, figuring it out, and doing everything that they could possibly do to put themselves into a position to succeed. The Nuggets have the heart of a champion. They have the belief. They understand what is needed, and they understand how they have to get it done. Jokic is at the center of it all. with the way that he has played, with the way that he has performed for his team in the most pressure-packed moments. And I know that Murray has that too. Murray hasn't had a great game in this series. Game 3 he played pretty well, but nothing compared to what he's expected to do in this moment. So it'd be nice, I think, if you're Denver, see if you could get a big Jamal Murray game. Michael Porter had a couple low-scoring performances in these last two. Let's see if you can get a Michael Porter game. See if you can get those guys going. But even if it's not that, if you remember back to Game 6 last year against the Phoenix Suns, where Denver won a critical Game 5, and then they did what I was asking about and just throttled the opposing team in Game 6. They had the Suns on their heels, and then it was KCP who was just dominant in the first half, hitting everything, getting out of transition, hitting threes, hitting pull-up twos, things like that. It doesn't have to be Jokic. It doesn't have to be Murray. It doesn't have to be Porter. It can come from anywhere. And so if you're Denver, you try to figure out who it's going to be. You try to press the advantage wherever you can, and you don't get cute with it. You just try to win the game, and you press on that advantage. And it doesn't matter if Murray scores 0 points or Jokic scores 4 or whatever. It is all about buckets. It is all about getting the job done. And that's the great thing about this team. There's no ego. There's no egos with this group. Guys know how good they are, but they don't care who scores. It is all about making the play and making the correct play and executing the game plan. That's just all it is. Joker's done that really well. He's put the team on his back a little bit. Now it's about the rest of the team. Now it's about, if they're going to overreact to Joker, how can he create those opportunities for everybody else? And how can they take advantage of those moments? That is what the heart of a champion really means. It is about, no matter what the opposing team throws out there, it is about how Denver responds. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Going to be a fun one, folks. Very excited about this. Denver has shut a lot of people up, including me. And I want to keep pressing that point because I'm not perfect. No analyst is perfect. Everybody thought, not everybody, the vast majority of people thought the Nuggets were done. And the way that they have responded has been legitimately incredible. And it should be celebrated as such because it was a tough, tough situation for Denver to have to go through. And they've come out of it, or close to come out of it on the other side, looking pretty good. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbooks, or not, God, good Lord. Brought to you by our good friends over at Number 38 and Bet Online and all the great advertisers that are still with us. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast. If you're watching, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening, please go rate, review, and subscribe on the audio. That would really, really help us out as we continue to try to grow the podcast. And I try to put in the best work that I possibly can. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Looking forward to Game 6. We'll talk to you guys very soon.